You're behind the wheel of a trolley car, 60 miles an hour. You can't stop. 5 workers on the track, 5 lives, gone. Unless you do something. Then you notice a sidetrack. 1 worker. 1 life. You have a choice. Turn and kill 1 to save 5. Or do nothing and let 5 die. What do you do? Hold that thought, because your answer is about to get a lot more complicated. This isn't just a thought experiment. This is the opening question of one of the most famous philosophy courses ever taught, Harvard's Justice, taught by Professor Michael Sandel. And in a lecture hall packed with hundreds of students, he asks it just like that. Straight up, no warm-up. When he polls the room, the vast majority say they'd turn, kill 1, save 5. The math feels obvious, but then he pushes. Why, he asks. What is the principle behind that choice? Someone in the crowd offers the first answer. It can't be right to kill 5 people when you could kill 1 instead. Simple, clean, hard to argue with. Someone else compares it to 9/11s, the passengers who brought down Flight 93 over Pennsylvania. They chose to kill everyone on that plane, rather than let it crash into a building full of thousands. Heroes, the newspaper called them. Same math. Tragic, but the same math. So far, so logical. Better 1 than 5. The crowd nods, but then one voice in the minority says something that stops the room cold. That same mentality, he says, is what justifies genocide. Kill 1 group to protect another. The greater good. Sound familiar? Suddenly the math doesn't feel so clean. Before we go further, if you're the kind of person who loves stories that actually make you think, that sit with you after the video ends, then you're in exactly the right place. Hit subscribe, turn on notifications. This channel doesn't do fluff, and neither do you. Now, back to the trolley. Sandel shifts the scenario. Same problem, different setup. You're no longer the driver. You're standing on a bridge, watching. The trolley is still barreling toward 5 workers, and you still can't stop it from up here. But standing next to you, leaning over the railing, is a large man. If you push him off the bridge, his body will stop the trolley. He dies. 5 people live. Same math. 1 life, 5 lives. How many would push? Almost nobody raises their hand. And that's the crack in the logic. Because just a minute ago, almost everyone agreed. 1 life, to save 5. Now, presented with the same equation, people recoil. They won't do it. Why? One student tries to explain. The fat man wasn't involved. The trolley wasn't his problem, pulling him into it. That's different. Sandel presses. But the worker on the sidetrack didn't volunteer either. Yeah, the student admits. But he was on the tracks. This guy was on the bridge. Another student. Pushing someone with your own hands. That's murder. Steering a trolley? That's something else. Someone pushes back. Either way, you're making a choice. Either way, someone dies because of you. What's actually the difference? And nobody has a clean answer. Because the truth is, the math is the same. But something in us knows it's not. Sandel goes further. Now you're a doctor, an ER surgeon. 6 patients just came in from a trolley crash, because of course they did. 5 have moderate injuries. 1 is critical. You can spend all day on the 1, and the 5 die. Or you treat the 5, and the 1 dies. Same math. Again, almost everyone treats the 5. But then the final version. The one that makes people genuinely uncomfortable. You're a transplant surgeon. 5 patients. Each needs a different organ. Heart, lung, kidney, liver, pancreas. All dying. No donors. And then, in the next room, a healthy man came in for a routine checkup. He's taking a nap. Nobody knows he's there. You could take his organs. He dies. 5 people live. Same. Math. How many would do it? Almost no one. And that's when the real lesson lands. Consequentialist thinking. The idea that morality lives in outcomes, in consequences, in the greatest good for the greatest number, sounds airtight. Until it doesn't. There's something else, underneath our moral instincts. Something that says, even if the math works out, some things are just wrong. That something has a name. It's called categorical moral reasoning. And it's going to be the other half of this whole conversation. These questions have haunted philosophers for centuries, and they still don't have easy answers, which is exactly why they matter. If this kind of thinking is your thing, drop a comment below. Would you push the fat man? And while you're at it, subscribe. It keeps the channel going, and it means more stories like this. Now Sandel leaves the hypotheticals behind. He tells a real story. A true crime, really. Though the crime happened far from any courtroom, in the middle of the South Atlantic Ocean, 1884. The yacht Mignonette goes down in a storm, 1,300 miles from shore. 4 survivors make it into a lifeboat. Captain Dudley, First Mate Stevens, a sailor named Brooks, and the cabin boy, 17-year-old Richard Parker. An orphan. No family. First long voyage. He went, the newspaper said, in the hopefulness of youthful ambition, thinking the journey would make a man of him. It didn't. For the first 3 days, nothing. No food, no water. Day 4. 1 can of preserved turnips. They caught a turtle. Stretched it out. And then, 8 days. Nothing. By day 19, Parker is lying at the bottom of the boat, barely conscious. He drank seawater. Against everyone's advice. He's dying. Dudley proposes a lottery. Draw lots. 1 person dies, so the rest can live. Brooks refuses. No lots are drawn. The next day, Dudley tells Brooks to look away. He motions to Stevens. Then he says a prayer, and kills Richard Parker with a penknife. Stabs him in the jugular. Brooks steps back in from his conscientious objection, long enough to share in the meal. For 4 days, the 3 survivors feed on the body and blood of the cabin boy. Then a ship appears. Dudley writes in his diary, and this is real. This is what he actually wrote. Quote, "On the 24th day, as we were having our breakfast, a ship appeared at last. Breakfast. They were rescued, taken back to England, arrested, put on trial. Their defense? Necessity. Better that 1 should die than 3. The prosecution's response: murder is murder." Sandel asks the room to act as the jury. Not guilty. What they did was morally permissible? Or guilty? What they did was morally wrong? The majority votes guilty. But it's not unanimous. And the debate that follows is messy and real. The defense. You have to do what you have to do. 19 days, with no food. The boy was already dying. 3 men survived. 3 families got their fathers and husbands back. A utilitarian calculation. 1 student, Marcus, goes further. Maybe they went on to do great things. Start charities. Help people. The prosecution fires back. They didn't have that right. No one gave them that right. We don't get to decide who lives and who dies, even in a lifeboat. Then a student named Kathleen changes the whole conversation. What if Parker had consented? She asks. What if Dudley had looked at the boy and said, "Parker, we're desperate. You're not going to make it anyhow. Would you be a martyr?" And Parker, barely conscious, dying, said yes? Would that make it okay? The room shifts. More hands go up. If he agreed, maybe. But someone pushes back. He was a teenager, alone, starving, half dead. Is that consent? Or is that coercion wearing consent's clothes? Then the lottery idea returns. What if everyone agreed up front, before anyone started dying, to draw lots? Fair procedure. Everyone at equal risk. More people say yes to that. Matt says what bothers him isn't the cannibalism. It's the lack of due process. But even then, even with a fair lottery, even with a final whispered yes from Parker, some say it's still wrong. Murder is murder, one student says. Every way our society looks at it. In any case, Sandel agrees it deserves a harder answer than just numbers. He points to Dudley's diary again. No remorse. Casual. Breakfast. If he felt nothing. If he never truly reckoned with what he did. Does that change what it was? At the end of the lecture, Sandel pulls it all together. 3 big objections. 3 open questions. 1. Is murder categorically wrong? Always, no matter what? And if so, where does that come from? What's the source of that rule? 2. If everyone agrees to a fair procedure, like a lottery, does that justify whatever outcome it produces? Why does process matter morally? 3. Why does consent change anything? What work does agreement actually do? Why is the same act, taking a life, wrong without consent, but potentially acceptable with it? These aren't rhetorical questions. They're going to take an entire semester to even begin to answer. And they'll take philosophers like Bentham, Mill, and Kant to argue them properly. But here's the thing Sandel leaves the room with, and it hits harder than any of the thought experiments. These aren't abstract puzzles. We live some version of these questions, every single day. Every time we weigh one person's suffering against another's. Every time we decide what's fair and what's justified and what just feels